The jury has decided the fate of Uvalde Schools police officer Adrian Gonzales. They've reached a verdict finding Gonzales not guilty. He was charged with 29 felony counts of abandoning and endangering a child for allegedly failing to engage the school shooter who murdered 19 students and 2 teachers back in May of 2022. The charges reflect 1 count for each of the 19 students who died in the shooting and the 10 children who survived in classroom 112. The jury had just been given the case today. Our Peter Haralambos is outside of the courtroom. Peter, lay out the arguments here from both sides and what made this case so unique.
Yeah, this trial, Linsey, was a long time coming for the Uvalde community, for the families of these victims. For years, they've seen reports, they've seen investigations, but this was really the first criminal trial stemming from this botched police response, and a lot of hope was riding on this case. They thought this was a fleeting opportunity for some kind of justice after this tragedy, one of the worst shootings in U.S. history. But just after about 2 weeks of testimony, we get this stunning acquittal on all counts, really emotional scene in this courtroom. We've been staying in touch with some of the families throughout this trial. They were optimistic. Of course, they had concerns about how the prosecution case was going. There were missteps that they noted, but they were hopeful that this might result in some justice for them, and certainly a disappointing outcome for them, but certainly a very emotional response for Mr. Gonzales, whose name has effectively been cleared by this jury's verdict.
We could just see the anticipation in the courtroom in those moments before that not guilty verdict came down. Had family members told you how important it was, how much they were desiring to hear a guilty verdict?
Yeah, I mean, in these conversations we've had after court, after these days of testimony, they believed that in a way, you know, while this was a case about only one officer, there were nearly 400 to respond that day, this case could deliver some semblance of justice. And, you know, over the course of this trial, they were expressing optimism. In conversations we had with some of them yesterday, they were hopeful that the prosecutors were able to get this case over the line. But after just 7 hours of deliberations, the jury coming back with this clear verdict, all 29 counts not guilty.
Peter, what's the status of the other criminal case against Uvalde Police Chief Peter Arredondo?
Yeah, that's right. So Arredondo is the only other officer who was charged in this botched police response, and his case is indefinitely on pause. There's a civil lawsuit related to some of the Border Patrol agents who responded to the shooting that day, brought by both Arredondo and the Uvalde District Attorney. And while that lawsuit goes through the courts, his case has kind of indefinitely been put on hold. In a way, the outcome of this case also shines a bit of a shadow on that prosecution and leaves some big questions about whether or not that's still a viable case going forward, and whether or not prosecutors think that they can secure a guilty verdict in that case.
You anticipate that this trial's outcome could set a precedent for his case?
I think that's fully right, in that, you know, in this case, we were able to see a bit of a preview of the prosecution case. They called 36 witnesses over 9 days of testimony. They basically put their cards on the table with this case, and based on this response from the jury, there are some gaping holes in their arguments. So we'll have to see how they respond. Of course, there's no trial date set in that case, so we'll have to see. But certainly a sense of frustration, emotions at times boiling over in this courtroom. We hope to hear from some of these families as they begin to exit court, but I'm sure, based on the really emotional scenes we're seeing playing out in court, that this is an outcome they were not hoping for.
Thick with emotion inside that courtroom just now. Peter Haralambos, we thank you so much.